Hello and welcome to another Canguro English Daily Digest. My name is Christian and today is Monday, the best day of the week. Today I'm going to be talking about something which is kind of a little bit abstract, a little bit kind of mysterious, but it has something really important to tell us about being human and about language learning, especially if you are learning a language from the beginning. Okay? Now, we need to start with today's word of the day, and today's word of the day is pundit. Now, this word comes to us from the Indian subcontinent, okay? And pundit, well, in the original language, pundit meant a learned scholar, somebody who knew a lot about a particular subject. But unfortunately, we took this word into English, a pundit, and it is probably a little bit derogatory. A pundit is a person who likes to give their opinions about something. You'll find pundits on television programs, sports programs, political programs, giving their opinions. And in the world of language teaching and language learning, there are plenty of individuals and companies who are exactly like pundits, giving their anecdotes and personal opinions about the best way to learn a language. But we're not interested in personal opinions, right? Because we want facts, we want answers, we want truth. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of that today. And today's word of the day is from the Indian subcontinent, and I want to continue to talk about the Indian subcontinent. Specifically, I want to talk about a type of music from the Indian subcontinent called a raga. Now, a raga has these two particular types of sections, right, in ragas. They are the alap and the gat. So rhythmically, they're a little bit different, okay? But the kind of tone is the same. And here's a question, right? Here's a question. Now, if you grow up with a raga, do you have a better understanding of the raga than a person who has never heard the raga? It's an interesting question. Do you enjoy the raga more if you know the raga? Like, for example, if you've never heard Madonna, would you like it? Or do you only like Madonna because you are culturally accustomed to Western pop music? Well, to try and answer this question, these researchers, what they did was they took some ragas and they put them online and they did a survey. They asked people to tell them, how did the raga make you feel? Okay? Now, they asked 143 people from the Indian subcontinent who knew exactly what the ragas were, who had heard the ragas before, and then they asked 112 people who had never heard the ragas, and they were from the United States, the UK, Hungary, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, Romania, Spain, and the Netherlands. So it's a very culturally diverse group of people, right? I don't think that there can be much more difference between somebody from Delhi and somebody from Korea, and then somebody from Spain. Very different cultures, very different everything, right? And then, so they asked them to listen to the ragas and then say, how did it make you feel? And there were different options. For example, did they make you feel tense, sad, angry, calm, devotional, romantic, happy, or longing? Right? So then the scientists, they took all this data together and they produced this. So what you'll see is that the grey bars are the cultured people who knew of the ragas, and the white bars are non-cultured people who had never heard the ragas before. And the coloured dots, okay, the circles, they represent the percentage of answers. And immediately, what you'll notice is that they all align, they all match. It didn't matter if you were from Korea or Spain, or you were from the home of the raga. The music made you feel exactly the same way. That tells us something really interesting. It tells us that there is something universal in music. There's some universal connection between the sound of music and how it makes us feel. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about universality of things, of language. So music has this effect, but music is not the only thing. There's also this research here, okay, where they showed people pictures of real objects like pencils and telephones and computers, and then they showed them engravings of those same objects, symbols, and they light up exactly the same part of the brain. Again, there's a universality, a connection between real life objects and the language and the symbols for those objects that we store in the brain. So it's starting to give us this idea that, well, we think we're very different, right? You know, because we are heavily cultured, you know, we are educated in different ways, we wear different clothes, we eat different food. But really, deep down, so similar in so many ways. And this brings us on to our first really interesting piece of linguistic universality. Okay, so this is something called the Leipzig-Jakarta list. And we have to remember that language has been around for a very, 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 very long time. A really long time. And the language that we use the most, right? The language we use the most is also the language that tends to be the most irregular, right? It's a bit like your socks. You know, you have your favorite socks, the socks you wear all the time, they are the socks with the holes in them, right? And the socks that you never use, your special Sunday socks, those socks are in perfect condition. And language follows this kind of trend. The words that we use all the time, they become irregular, okay, and kind of worn out. I mean, look at all of the irregular verbs in English. They're all the common verbs: to be, to have, for example, okay? And all of those words that we hardly ever use are much more regular. Now, what this list is a list of words that haven't really changed. They haven't changed maybe since ever, okay? But what it means, it doesn't mean that they are not common, it means they haven't changed. So it's actually the opposite in terms of They are words that have been around in language since the beginning. They've changed their forms and they've become irregular, but these words have been with us since we were monkeys scratching in the cave walls, right? Now, this list was compiled from lots of different world languages, okay? And the ranking is like this. Let me read you some of the words. Fire, nose, to go, water, mouth, tongue, blood, bone, root, to come, breast, rain, name, etc. Okay? You get the idea, right? You get the idea that these are words that are kind of like fundamental to human existence. 25% of them are body parts, okay? Hand, nose, is, and another big percentage of them are insects or animals. Like, for example, the fly is on here. The dog is on here, okay? And so this tells us again about this universality, because we all know all of the things on this list, right? So we are moving from this idea of music and sound being universal at creating emotion to symbols being universal in creating a connection with language, to language being universal in creating a connection with the world. And now we're going to go just one step further, okay? And we're going to look at this list of semantic primes. Now, semantic primes are different from this list because semantic primes are not specific words, they are concepts. Okay? And let me give you an idea. So we have things like people, someone, body, good and bad, big and small, think, know, want, don't want, feel, see and hear. In fact, on this list there are hardly any words, okay? Now, these semantic primes were created by the Polish linguist Wierzbowski. I'm not very good at pronouncing Polish words. Sorry. And what's really interesting about these is this takes the link between those basic concepts and messages. So we're moving from universal emotions all the way through to universal messages. Well, what does that mean? Okay? It means that using these semantic primes, and it's been shown in the research that using only 60 of these concepts, 60 concepts, we can say anything. Just let that sink in for a moment. 60 concepts allow you to say anything you need to say in language. And there's some specific examples, okay? So, how can you describe lying? You know, not telling the truth, using such basic vocabulary? Well, this is how you do it. Someone said something to someone else. Someone said something to someone else. There's some concept. The concepts are someone and saying and someone else, right? And a thing. Someone said a thing to another person. 4 basic concepts, okay? This person knew, that's the verb on the list, to know. This person knew it was not true. True and false on the list. Right? They knew it was not true. Okay? This Someone, they said it to the other person because they wanted them to think it was true. People think it's bad if you do this. That's how you explain lying, using these basic semantic primes. Okay, you say. Okay. Okay, fine. What about the beautiful detail of language? What about how can you describe the difference between being happy and being content? I think even a thesaurus or a dictionary would have a difficult time with this. Happy and content. Well. Again, there's a specific example. We can describe the difference between happy and content using these semantic primes. Ready? Happy. Someone thinks like this. So, many good things are happening to me right now. I can do the things that I want. This is good. Because of this, I feel good at this time. Okay, that's happy. Now, what's the difference between happy and content? Something good is happening to me now. I want this. I don't want anything else now. Because of this, I'm content. Explained perfectly and succinctly using these basic universal semantic primes. Now, I know what you're thinking. Okay, happy, content. What about something really difficult, really meaty? And again, they give a specific example. So there's a word in Japanese which is ame. I don't know if that's a good pronunciation, ame. And if you Google ame, they tell you that it's a very difficult word to translate into English. It's a difficult concept for non-Japanese people to understand. In fact, on the internet it says, what does it say? It says, it's a peculiarly Japanese emotion, which shows the true essence of Japanese psychology. So something like that, something very specific to Japanese culture and Japanese psychology, it will be impossible to translate that emotion using only 60 things, right? Let me do it. Okay. This is what the person thinks when they have ame. This person can do good things for me. This person wants to do good things for me. When I am with this person, nothing bad can happen to me. I want to be with this person. That's ame. Now, isn't that a beautiful thing? To take these concepts and realize that we can condense them down into 60 basic words or ideas. And why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you because none of this has any relation to understanding the structure of language. None of this has any relation to memorizing lists of vocabulary. None of this has any relation to the present perfect continuous versus the past simple, right? None of this has anything to do with this. I'm going to leave the explanation to Ms. Adele Goldberg in her book. Okay, this is what she says. Listen to this. The learner's goal is to comprehend messages given the forms she witnesses, and to produce forms given the messages she wants to convey. Learning a language, using a language, isn't anything to do with the technical stuff. It's about conveying messages, okay? She doesn't say that the learner's goal is to use the third conditional correctly. It's about conveying messages, and messages are universal. You think that if you're Japanese and you're learning English, you think it's so different? It's not. Because we're all human. We're all the same type of animal that share the same emotions when we hear music, that understand the same concepts when you explain them correctly. And so if you're learning a language, you don't need to memorize the 10,000 most common words. You can probably get by just fine with 60. And focusing on messages, focusing on what makes us human, our need, our desire to communicate, that's how you get from 0 to fluency. I hope you enjoyed today's Daily Digest. I hope that it wasn't too abstract. I'm Christian, this is Canguro English. I'll see you in class.